Hi, I'm Daryl Munro from Beyond the Numbers, and our objective is through transforming the future through leadership. And this is a short story, if you like, or case study about that very point, how a leader is not getting recognition that they desire in the workplace, and then what actions they take to actually change that. So in this scenario, this mining engineer had been with the organisation for a while, been working at a higher level than the level of their role for a period of time, and had been promised that they would receive recognition and eventually get promoted as a result of that. However, time had passed and this wasn't happening, and so the engineer was actually getting really frustrated and felt like they weren't getting that recognition, and were thinking about, is it time to move outside the organisation? So they had two options really: leave the organisation, go seeking that recognition elsewhere, or stay in the organisation and do something different. And so what they did is they took the second option, stay in the organisation, do something different. And to help them, they actually got a professional coach. And they funded that out of their own pocket, because that's how important it was to them. And so in meeting with that engineer, after we had a few discussions, it was determined where some of the opportunities lay for them to disrupt the current thinking of the organisation and its leaders around this engineer and create a new way of thinking or a new recognition. And so one of the first things that we used was, one of the models that we have is called the 6 levers of leadership. And one of those levers is about building the right relationships. And so in determining the gaps in the journey that this engineer wanted to go on was build strong, robust, credible relationships with people in the 360-degree network. And so the current relationship with their immediate leader was at best transactional rather than transformational. So that person wasn't seeing them as somebody that would be developed, and they're more almost like a roadblock. So that was one of the things. Then the next thing was to think about, well, who in my network is basically a high influence within the organisation and a current supporter of me, or I need to have them see me as someone they want to support. So we use this 9-quadrant box as one of the tools. And so over here you see how influential, if you like, are the various people in my network in terms of how the organisation perceives them. Are they a high influencer in the organisation? And then on the other axis was, are they a supporter of me? Do they support me, this engineer, in the work that I do and my objectives, etc.? And so what they did, I encouraged them to do, is look at their network and see if they could place them somewhere in those quadrants, if you like. And what came out of it was, so they thought of the first person and they said, well, they're definitely a high influencer. So that's a good thing. But in terms of my support, I just realised, well, they realised that they weren't a high supporter, or they weren't a regular supporter, because maybe the relationships hadn't been developed sufficiently so the person really understood the engineer and understood their motivations and what they're trying to achieve. So when they looked at that person overall, they decided that, yes, they probably were a supporter, and even though they're a high influencer, they weren't doing a lot to influence me or my objectives. So they did that. They plotted all of the people in there, and they thought, well, this now gives me a snapshot on which I can look at who are the people I need to develop stronger, more grounded relationships with. So that was one of the tools. The other thing was using powerful questions. And so in the forums where the engineer was meeting with senior leaders, preparing for and going into meetings, and then finding the opportunity to ask that powerful, searching question that maybe other people hadn't thought about, that was one of the key ways to get that recognition. And an example of that, when they actually began to do these two simple strategies, the example of asking the right question at the right time in a meeting, the most senior leader caught up with them post the meeting and thanked them for asking that really smart question, because that gave a different tone to the meeting, and they got reasonably good outcomes as a result of it, and encouraged them to continue doing that. So all of a sudden there was recognition at the levels that were going to make a difference. So how did it all go overall? Well, it was a 6-month plan, but within 4 months, the engineer had received the recognition and got promoted in there to the next level in the organisation, and was now having much more meaningful conversations with the key stakeholders in her network, where they were sharing mutual ideas and tips, and so the whole environment at work had gone from one where the engineer was going to leave to now thoroughly enjoying coming to work and looking forward to the next challenge. So I encourage you to step back, think about what will your leadership plan be for 2020, and identify those key things that will give you the leverage right up front. Make sure that you maintain your integrity and your value set in terms of achieving your goals. Don't compromise on that, because they all help you get the right outcomes. So I encourage you to go into 2020 with that in mind, and we look forward to hearing of your successes.